All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the macro perspective. We're gonna start throwing that in there. I think Ohio State took it, but we're gonna take it back. Apparently, you can't have a trademark on that, but nonetheless, here today on our Cenegenics guest series, we have drumroll Juliana. Jason? Wait, where's your last name? It's not showing up for me.
Oh, funny.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, you got it.
I know. I remember it. It's hard to remember everybody that we work with first and last name, but it's also a pet peeve of mine to not know people's last name. Seamus, you have to make sure your last name is showing up. And now come to think of it, when it's normally on my other computer, it doesn't show Marcos Rivera. It just shows Marcos. Anyway, so we're here with another episode in our guest series. And we have a performance health coach, one of our colleagues, with us. She does a multitude of things outside of just the performance health coaching lens, which, telling that story we think is super cool, and something we want to additionally highlight in today's episode as well. I know that you've, one of your main, the passion behind that other business where you do the jewelry, right, is because of people going through an IVF journey, which you can probably speak at length about, all those things, which I think that's actually a good place for this episode to kind of go, because obviously there are, maybe there's some sort of tie to longevity with IVF and things that you have to consider when you're, taking some exogenous hormones, things to consider. I don't really know what the literature looks like, and maybe you can educate me because you've done it twice?
No, I just did it one time.
Just one time? Okay, one time.
It was like 1.5. Depends on what you consider one, because I only had one egg retrieval. So some people have multiple retrievals, but yeah.
How many eggs do they retrieve?
I have a different case too, in that when I was 21, I lost my left ovary to a soccer ball sized tumor that I did not know was there.
Soccer ball size, like a size 3 or size 5? There's difference.
I don't know anything about soccer. Whatever, that's what the doctor said to me, was soccer ball size. So, yeah. And I wasn't that overweight at the time to hide it. So
oh, wow.
It was very crazy that it was found, and it was all encapsulated in my left ovary. So that was removed, and my left fallopian tube was removed at that time. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to have children. I didn't know if it was going to happen to the right side. We just didn't know why. It's not something, that happened to my parents or anybody in my family that I knew of. So it's sort of fast forward 10 years later when I did get married, and it was like, oh, well, can I have children? And we had our first child right away. And so that was great. It was a blessing. We were super happy. And then we started to time it. Like when she was 1, we're like, oh, let's try for another kid. And then it wasn't working. And we took a year. And, because a lot of the physicians, they want you to try for a year before they start to implement things. But I was a little bit more proactive. I was like, well, let's get in there at 9 months because then I'll actually have whatever medicine I need to take within the year. But we ended up taking, no, actually, I don't even think I took anything. I did get pregnant, but it ended up being an ectopic pregnancy in my one good fallopian tube that I had left. And so then at that point, the doctor that I was working with was an infertility doctor, and she said, I would just go the IVF route, because right now you would have to wait for that fallopian tube to heal. She wanted to take the whole thing out, and then I would have had no fallopian tubes and would have had to do IVF for sure. But I said, please try to save it, because at this point I only had one child, and I was like, try to save the fallopian tube. Well, she was amazing, and she did save it, but she was like, go IVF, let the fallopian tube heal, because the chances of having another ectopic pregnancy at that time was going to be high. So that's why I had to go through IVF. So it wasn't necessarily like an infertility issue.
Per se.
We all are underneath the umbrella of that, but yeah. And then
it's so nuanced, like with that, like
it really is.
I feel like how do I say this? Like, I know with like women's health symptoms, it is just like you just said, it's just kind of like this umbrella term. And it's like actually each each specific thing is like very, very different, but it has to be there. Can you
Yeah.
kind of go different? You said a term there, a type.
A
What kind of
topic?
atopic?
So it's
Yeah,
ectopic.
can you break that down?
Ectopic? Okay.
Yeah, so it just means it's outside of where it's supposed to be.
Mm.
So the baby, so like the sperm and the egg are supposed to meet, and then they sort of come together and they go into the uterine wall, and that's where they're supposed to settle. But in an ectopic pregnancy, it just happens elsewhere or outside of the uterus.
Oh,
right? Because the egg's coming down from the ovary, right?
Mhm.
The sperm is coming up, and so if they meet in the fallopian tube, sometimes they will stay there.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, I see. And that comes with obviously it's complications and things like that. So that happened with you.
Yeah, and luckily I did find it early on. I was already bleeding, but people, they find it because it ruptures. And the reason
Yeah.
I got to find it early was because I was working with an infertility doctor, and she wanted to just look at things early because that's what they do. If I had just been working with my normal OBGYN, I would not have been there for the ultrasound at all.
Wow.
Yeah. And the
Comes to
baby had a
show.
heartbeat and everything. It was pretty tragic.
Wow.
You know, yeah. So, but then to your first question, when you were asking a little bit about, I think what a cycle is that because I only had one ovary, when you have to do all the shots in your tummy and everything to grow your uterus, to grow all of your eggs so that they can go in there and take them, I had to do a little bit extra and more days because I only had one ovary that had to do the work for two.
Whoa.
Mm.
Whoa. That's insane.
Yeah. And then the stuff that they don't tell you is like, you just sign up for IVF. You're like, yay, I'm going to make a baby. But when you, like, from a doctor's perspective, they're like, we just want to make as many embryos as possible, right? Let's put the stats up there. Let's make sure that we get you a baby. But my perspective was, I don't want to have any embryos left because in my eyes, those are my children, and I don't want them to just be frozen forever. I don't want them to be destroyed. You know, I didn't really want them to be put up for surrogacy or adoption or anything like that. But these are things that you really have to think about before you go through IVF. You know, because I mean, and now it is this whole, it's kind of a problem. I mean, sometimes people don't consider it a problem, and that's their prerogative. But, you know, there are so many banks now just full of these little embryos, and people just pay for the storage monthly because they don't know what to do. And so I had this very, I don't know, it was a difficult discussion. My doctor was amazing because she doesn't really view the embryos the way that I do, but we decided to actually pull eggs back and not fertilize them all. So my chances were a lot lower of having children because of that. But I got two embryos. I had three, and then the three went to testing. They go to this genetic testing, and one came back abnormal. Two were normal. So one was put in my uterus, and that's my daughter, Holly. And then we had planned to have the other one. We had all girls. So we had planned to have the other one. We had the date. It was like embryo transfer day. It was exciting. And then it failed. So I was like, what? Like, how is this failing? Like, it was just wild because I don't have any infertility issues in that way. Like, babies will hang on to my uterus just fine. But I was not expecting that. And yeah.
Wow. Well, first
That's
off,
difficult.
thank you for sharing that. It's like that's a difficult trials and tribulations, and for you to have gone through that. First and foremost, I just in my head, just the first thing is like, Juliana, amazing, like that, like you got a daughter out of that, like you guys are raising a child. But also just for me, like in my head, I always just go like, man, the craziness of the human capacity, and then like the science that got us here.
Mm-hmm.
The
Absolutely.
science, that's it just boggles my mind how we can do that.
Yeah.
Modern
Yeah.
medicine's crazy, and it ain't cheap.
No.
I'm sure. Out of
Just
curiosity,
do that genetic testing on it's called a blastocyst. I'm saying embryo, which is incorrect, but it's a blastocyst at that point. And that's what my jewelry is. It mimics a 5-day blast because that's how long they stay in the petri dish and grow outside of your body. But I lost my train of thought on that.
you're the transfer of it, and then you're correcting embryo versus blastocyst. Oh, great. Can't jog your memory. Yeah. It's all right. That's all right.
It'll come.
It'll come back.
Oh no, the cost. It was the cost of it.
The cost of it, yeah. What was the cost of it for?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So the cost is that for those blastocysts to go to genetic testing, which a lot of people don't pay for because it's $5,000 just to do that. And so
per embryo or just like just to send it?
No, it's not per embryo. It's just per
test. Okay.
Like batch.
Per batch, gotcha.
So if I was to do another egg retrieval and I had another batch, it would be another $5,000.
Yeah, that's a pretty penny. Jeez.
Yeah. I just did not want them. I didn't want to do a transfer and have them put an abnormal blastocyst inside me. It didn't.
No, I mean we did genetic testing for Ari and Zeke, same thing, because my wife we didn't do IVF, but we did genetic testing, part of the blood work, because you could do it at like 8 or 12 weeks. Basically, we found out the sex like earlier than you could from an ultrasound because we also were doing the genetic testing, which I'm assuming is probably pretty similar. And also, selfishly, we got to know the sex early, right? But from a perspective of like understanding the potential abnormality of it, what we might be getting ourselves into, if that were the case, because my wife actually has an autistic brother. So we're making sure that we're, dotting our I's and crossing our T's and knowing what was going to happen. Thank God it was nothing abnormal. Everything was, picture perfect. I mean, even when they, pulled both of them out, how they give them that scorecard. Maybe they only do it in Las Vegas. They're like, Zeke got like he's like, he got a 9.9 out of 10. This is a perfect, healthy baby. I was like, oh man. I was like, point what? He's like, yeah, he has this little like birthmark right here. This only imperfection. And I was like,
they took points off for that?
They took a point. It was like a little like inner divot. It's like, again, it's like not a smooth spot, but it's not necessarily like a birthmark. And I was like, okay, son, you're not perfect. How does that feel? And then say I was like, I didn't even know that they ranked it. Come on. And so then they did the same thing with Ari. She has like a little like, looks like a little like blood blister kind of birthmark kind of thing, like on her inner thigh. And that's the same thing. It's like one little demerit for both of them. And I was like, it's all right, guys. Just the world will never be quite so easy to get a 99%. I promise you.
Funny story. My dad actually talks about this all the time. I got a 9 out of 10 and he was not happy with that. And he went and he said, what is this? Why didn't she get a 10 out of 10? And then they looked back and they're like, oh, this was a mistake. And then they changed it. And then I was 10 out of 10.
Oh.
Like, and he was like, yeah, right. Yes, 10 out of 10. Like, how dare you?
How dare you? I know. I didn't. So many things that you're gonna get into eventually, Seamus. You're gonna laugh. You'd be like, "Did you do that? Did this happen to you?" It's like, absolutely. You're jogging my memory, man.
I'm actually just thinking about it right now because, like, yeah, I'm planning my wedding, and our boy Adam called it out because he asked when we were working out. Remember, he's like, "How long have you guys been together?" I'm like 8, 9 years. And he's like, "Okay, so you just asked her to marry you?" Yeah. He's like, "All right, so you've been simmering. Everything shoots now." I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you're gonna get married, then the kids are gonna come, then the new house, and then maybe the next kid. And I was like, oh shit. So it's like all hitting me right now of like what you're saying, because I'm like, yeah, I'm probably gonna have to ask Marcos, like, what the fuck am I doing? What am I doing?
We were pregnant 1 month after we were married.
Oh.
We were pregnant 1 month into like getting together. It was you know what? I'll be transparent on the podcast. When the one is the one, the one is the one. And there was just so many instances I was like, oh my God, this woman to me marks all the boxes I need. She likes to work out. We have similar interests. She works hard. All those things. I was like, I mean, I don't know if I've told this here. I was dealing with some, we'll call it consulting work. I was working for another nutrition coaching company back in the day, and I went to Dallas to hang out with another coach. And one thing, like she was trying to help me with like growing my part of the business, right? Because we worked for that company, but it was kind of independent contractors. I was like, I can't be here. I had to fly home. I got to go like back to this girl. And love story. It was like something out of a movie. At least I think of that. I had to buy my ticket back home early, and I was like, I guess I don't know how I could know this, but I had some pretty other crazy relationships in the past, and then basically we're like, what if this were to happen theoretically? And we both like looked at each other. It was like, yeah, if it happens, it happens. And it happened. I mean, you get two relatively healthy individuals around each other. It doesn't take long, like you just said, 1 month after. And actually the second time, like you kind of said, was maybe a little more difficult. We were like, maybe something else. Maybe it's the stress. It was during COVID, so that didn't help matters, obviously. And then as soon as we're about to go, like, try to change her life plans and do hair, which she does now, of course she's pregnant and in school at the same time. Of course, so
That's funny.
It's funny and crazy, but the journey of that, and then having like, that. So you said the blastocyst. So like that. Yeah. So that's what that image inside of like the charm is something that represents what that would look like inside the petri dish. I was wondering, I was like, I see the jewelry, and I guess it is like kind of that keepsake of like, would you people, is it like a charm? Do you do more than one? Is it just like a one?
There are only 2 people out there that wear a double ember, so it's called ember, but there are 2 of these on the chain. It's because they had 2 babies and they just wanted it on one, so I had that made special for them. But you could have 3, like you could have them all the way around if you want. I mean, it's just supposed to be a symbol of whatever. And then there's a little hidden forever symbol in the chain in the back, and I don't know if you can see it. It's like
probably gonna be a little too small to see. But like an infinity?
It's an infinity sign, yes, because no matter where your babies are, if they're earth side with you or they're not, they are always with you.
I love it.
And it's Messages. Like, it's just, a lot of people don't want to talk about it, right? They don't want to talk about what they've been through, whatever it is. And so this way I put it in the back intentionally. So it's like you're part of a secret club. You can talk about it if you want to, or you don't have to.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. No, that makes a lot of sense. I really appreciate your candor and just open and vulnerability talking about that, Juliana, just because it's like, I think when it comes to women's health, it's more complicated than men. I mean, I feel like I've talked to many physicians, and it's like with their day-to-day work, whether it's the physicians we work here at Cenegenics, it's like, guys, here we go. 1, 2, and 3. That's the input. You good. And it's pretty spot on for most guys, except for like the nuanced stuff. With women, it's every single woman I work with, I'm just like, I don't know how to handle this one. I'm not so sure how to handle this right now.
Convoluted physically and convoluted mentally, right? I mean, there's a lot going on in both. Yeah.
Yeah. The biological differences. I mean, I guess this episode happens at the right time. Everything that's going on in the world, quote unquote, the potential craziness of things that may or may not be happening at the Olympics. I'm going to side with the facts of like, we'll never really know things because they didn't even disclose some of the information. It's just like maybe an assumption that this person failed the test. Okay, well, what did they actually fail in the test? I want to get the whole story, which we'll never know. But the biological differences, we'll call them sex differences. I mean, I don't even know what the right thing to say is there. I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but biologically speaking, XX or XY, like when you are XX, your body goes through far more changes through different, what's the one philosopher that talks about the 4 different phases of life? Do you know what I'm talking about?
The 4 agreement guy or no?
The 4 agreements?
No, I don't know if it's agreements, but there's like, like adolescence, then there's like early adult, late adult, and then like, like the further one. They have like specific names for it, but like those different.
Yeah, I'm not so sure the philosophers, but I think you read the book.
I may have. It's been a little over a year since I've read a book.
Yeah.
if I'm being frank.
I actually tell all my female patients, I tell them, well, I mean, things, because the doctor can start prescribing like a certain like hormone regimen for them.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason that we do the lab draws, and I'm just jumping in here, but the reason we do them every 8 to 12 weeks is because we may need to change that hormonal regimen, because it's changing so much with women. As you're a year older, your hormones are different. You're another year older, your hormones are different, because like you said, there are so many changes. It's not just in the beginning of life, it's in the middle. It's, it's everywhere. It's like during your baby making years, it's, it's just wild. And so that's, I think, when people go, oh, especially women, like, you're right. This is not just give me a blueprint of what I need to take for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not that.
I'm in such an agreement. I think we could kind of switch that into the conversation leading into like the Cenegenic patient base, maybe around females, Juliana, just because it's really relating to the progress you've made with your life and stuff like that. But basically, when it comes to that, I really love what Cinegenics does there, where it's like we're constantly having feedback. It's not like, hey, let's just check in a while from now. No, it's like, no, we have to look at these check-ins, whether it's month to month with your performance health coach like us, or hey, you're talking about these labs, having that concept with the doc, because with the ladies, it's going to be different where they're at. Maybe a good standing point, and I think this might be great just because a lot of our listeners probably may be into this, but areas of a female's life. Maybe let's talk about peri, and postmenopause. Like, how would you approach that, Juliana? I mean, that's a very nuanced conversation, but from a Cenegenics standpoint, obviously we're going to talk about labs, but from a performance health coaching standpoint, like, okay, how do we address that from a nutrition perspective? How do we address that from a lifestyle, a training perspective, maybe supplementation? Hey, how do you look at sleep? How do you look at, handling stress? Maybe that's something that you can kind of talk about, Juliana, just like with the patient base, or like how
like what you touched on. It's funny with men, it is almost a little bit cookie cutter, right? And I feel like I've been doing this for so long that people can walk in the door and I already know what I'm going to tell them, right?
Yeah.
Like I kind of already have their macros like in my head. I just go to you.
Well, that's because you're an exceptional professional and you can view somebody and do that. It's not as easy as that as people think, for sure.
Yeah, it's not.
No, and I didn't mean it like that. I am.
Well, before we get, how long have you been with Cenegenics, by the way?
Okay, so I have been with Cenegenics for over 11 years now.
All right.
I opened the San Francisco Center with Dr. Campion. And it was very fun. I felt like Mary Tyler Moore, no joke. Like coming up from the BART station, and then you feel the city air, and it like hits you in the face, and everybody's bustling around and getting their coffee and this and that, and it was like amazing. And San Francisco has changed a lot
in the last 11 years.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was so fun. But I've learned a lot from working with him too, right? I mean, I was so lucky to work with such a great physician, because as you also said, we don't really discuss the medical side of things. Like, I am not the one that would even know what to prescribe somebody hormonally, female or male, right? But I have learned a lot working with Dr. Campion.
Yeah, Dr. Campion is a next level like savant when it comes to this stuff, and very wise too. Not just like obviously you've got the textbook knowledge, but it's the very much his wisdom runs deep to the point that I'm like, yo, where is this from? Because he lives it. He lives it too, and he has such a deep relationship with the patient base and everyone that's come across his table, and he's seen those, and he lives that lifestyle of trying to have longevity, not just for the science facts, but like the quality of life. Like, what's he doing outside? His life story outside of Cinegenics is so cool too. So like, he's super super fun as a physician to work with. But yeah, Juliana, like not only did you kill it with San Francisco, but I heard stories of you like running my show in Beverly Hills, where you had to fly down with Dr. Campion too, right?
It was fun. This was pre-babies, but we would see patients in San Francisco Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then we would have, like, I would pack my stuff and get there Wednesday morning, and we would have our suitcases ready, and we would see that last patient on Wednesday, and then we would go to the airport and then fly down, check into the hotel in Beverly Hills, and then we saw patients down there Thursday and Friday.
Dang.
Lavish lifestyle.
So it was just so fun. And that was also when like Virgin Airlines, and they had that really fun commercial. It was like a musical number, and we're just doing the whole thing every time, right? Because we just got used to hearing it.
What was the most amount of flights you had in 1 year when you did that?
I don't know. You know, I was just thinking about this. It felt like it was such a long time, and I don't think it was. I think it was a really short period of time that we did this, because it just wasn't sustainable for anybody.
Yeah.
But,
would you say it was over 2 digits, like over 2 digits of some flights, like into the 20s? 20 flights, 30 flights?
I would say it's probably under.
Okay. In the mid-teens, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
It did have an impact on me of just, and I got into a rhythm, and I remember like the coffee shops I would go to in the morning, or like I'd go over to the Grove, and you know, but it's funny because I really don't know how many times we did it.
Yeah.
What? I could tell you exactly the number that I had to do in 2023. Well, yeah.
So that's why, Marcos, because like, you know, it would be like every week and then we wouldn't do it for a while, because then we would hire somebody. They went through the health coaches down there that just, I don't know what was going on. So.
It's tough. I mean, being in big cities sometimes, you know, trying to attract the audience that we do, you know, and finding people that want to be as invested as us to go do these things across different places. It's almost a young professional's job at times, like when you didn't have kids. As soon as you start having a family and can probably health coach a little bit better and actually relate to some patients a little bit, it becomes a little bit hard for you to do that, you know? And yeah, like obviously I sacrificed a good amount in the last year and a half, 2 years of not being home. But like, I was also privileged enough to be like, my wife's going through this transition phase where she's starting a business or trying to, and we can kind of afford to do it in a sense. You know what I mean? Like, because again, like I wouldn't do it if it didn't make sense, like financially, because I'm not there, you know, I'm not there to assist and help with the kids and do all those things, because then she's still trying to figure something out. So yeah, like I can imagine too.
Balance for everybody is so different, and it's crazy. And then it's like the man has a different work-life balance than the mom. I should say like the dad and the mom, right? Like, yeah. So it's just totally different.
Yeah. And it was like, it's not hard on me, it's hard on her because I wasn't there, you know, like, but I will say it definitely helped me become a lot more understanding anecdotally of like the struggles that some of our patients do go through with like their busy travel lives. And I think everybody thinks that that'd be like really cool to have a job where I get a lot of travel. It's like, the first couple times if you're going to somewhere kind of new, it's exciting at first. It's like a new city. All right, cool. I'm gonna walk from here to there. I'm gonna see this. You know, I was jazzed. I'm like, this is cool. But the first couple times on a trip, it'd be like, I don't know where I'm getting. Like, I don't know where the nearest Whole Foods is or Trader Joe's or something I can kind of grab that kind of sits within, you know, the prescriptive element of living the like lifestyle that, you know, we try to like go and preach and do. I'm not gonna lie. I've told this story on here a few times. I mean, I had a moment one time in the Nashville airport. I was like, I'm eating this entire freaking pizza. Like, I don't even care. Like, the delayed flight. I think I called Seamus. I was like, look, man, like, I should have just ordered a slice.
The funny thing is, you had a Nashville flight, Marcos. You had a delayed flight. I had a flight I was in Utah. And I was having like buffalo chicken wings with like salad, and you're like, what are you having? I'm like, dude, I'm so hungry right now. I remember because you're like, dude, I'm gonna have this whole pizza. I'm like, dude, me too. Like,
doesn't that make you a better coach though? I mean, like going through all these stuff, and actually trying to do it. I mean, I have a whole list of how to eat out at fast food restaurants, that I will give. You know, like, and like
It makes you really realize, like, like Marco said, like, I feel like sometimes we look at like the people that are quote unquote successful in like business and like, look at me, I'm traveling, like the hustle culture and social media nowadays. And then you realize, like, when you get to work with these people, they're like, dude, Seamus, I have to be on this flight, this flight, this flight, this flight, this flight. And then you realize, like, also they do want to be healthy. They do.
Yeah.
Trust me, they do. That's why they're coming here. They struggle. Like, they're struggling, you know? Like Marco said, it's like there comes a point where you're doing the same job, whether it's trying to close down deals, have meetings, and it's like, okay, this is tough, you know? This is very difficult. So I totally, you know, coaching those people up, like, especially people that are doing a lot of sales, for example, like people that are like constantly meeting new people and have to find new information and then have to make sure they relate it back.
Social, like, eating and drinking thing to like buddy with somebody, and that is really hard. And it's like I have two stories to this, but one is just a saying that I say because people ask me when they can have their cheat days. Like, well, maybe my cheat day will be my airport day or whatever. And I tell people, do not find cheat days because cheat days will find you.
For sure.
That's a good one.
They will. So and people are like, look at, I mean, if this is the first time they're like, what? Like, I'm not going to have a cheat meal? Or I can't schedule that in? Like, I can't just go out on Friday night? I'm like, no. Because what if your long lost friend who's been living in Australia forever just like shows up on Saturday? You've had your cheat meal on Friday night. You're going to be on it on Saturday. They call you like, hey man, I'm in town. Let's do the town, you know, like together. And you're like, well, shoot, you already blew it out of the water, right? And then you're going to have like extra cheat day or whatever it is. So they will find you.
That was one. What's the other one? What's the other one?
I was going to tell you my Taco Bell story. You want to know my Taco Bell?
Run it.
Oh, I got one too. Okay.
Oh, see, everybody has a Taco Bell.
It's the last time I had Taco Bell. It's like the first time I had it in like 10 years.
Okay, that's like part of my story. It's almost that quote right there. But so part of what you don't know is I was overweight for like most of my life that I haven't talked about yet today.
Okay.
And struggled. I started Jenny Craig when I was 11. And there's a whole story there. But when I was in college and then my master's, I remember Taco Bell was like one of my places, right? And I might get it every day, Taco Bell, okay? And I remember this whole thing where this was before I knew anything about nutrition, like healthy lifestyle, right? Obviously. But people were like, you have to find your balance, right? Well, balance is so different for everybody depending on where they are in life, right? And so I was like, okay, well, my balance then will be just getting Taco Bell 5 days a week instead of 7.
Okay.
Right? And so I started to do that. And it was really difficult. Those 2 whole days to go without stopping at Taco Bell. I mean, that was really difficult. And then it started to become, 5 days went to 3 days. And then that was hard. And then eventually I did not have Taco Bell for like 10 years. And I was sort of worried. I was like, what is going to happen when I'm like almost stuck to go to Taco Bell? Because what if it's like this trigger where I'm just going to go back to everything that I used to do, right? And it's like,
I can just see it now, Juliana, like the fear in your head of like, if I have the Taco Bell, you're going to get like chocolate wasted deep in the tacos. I can't stop.
Yeah, I mean, I was really worried at this point because I wasn't like kind of like micro dosing Taco Bell at all. It was like gone. So I found myself at Taco Bell at one point, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this healthy. I'm going to figure this out. And I got a side salad, whatever that was. It's like lettuce. And then I ordered 2 soft tacos, and I opened them up, and I poured the insides into the side salad, and then like mixed it all up. And it was so good. And I felt like I won Taco Bell.
Defeated it.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. I was like, who else going to do this? But I'm going to write it down because other people are going to think that I'm crazy.
See, that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing is Healthifying what you're going to do. Because this is the conversation I have with many people. I think Marcos gets this too. It's like, when I signed up with Seamus as a client, as an online coaching client, or even just working at Cenegenics, like whatever, right? Because we have coaching platforms outside of here. They're like, Seamus, does that mean I can't see my family? I can't hang with my friends? I can't go to the places that I want? No, absolutely not. I just spoke with a client today. He's like, dude, like, I love bread. Like, I freaking, like, I have to have it. I'm like, okay. Well, there's
Sounds
levels
like my
to this
mom.
bread. there's levels to this bread. Like, what kind of bread are you having? Are you having white bread, whole wheat? Are you having like sourdough? Are you having like Ezekiel sprout? And he's like, I didn't even know it was that deep. I was like, I guess you don't love bread. I guess you don't love bread as much as you think. But like going deep into like, okay, well, what does that look like? How do we, like, what's your goal, right? First and foremost. And then how do we apply these rules of healthifying across the board? And I think one of the best things I've always told people is like, my favorite story about me, not Taco Bell, but like Chipotle, is like I lost 12 pounds with Chipotle getting ready for a jiu-jitsu tournament. I had Chipotle like 3 times a week because I had jiu-jitsu practice 3 times a week. And it was right next door. And I was like, I needed to refuel. And I documented the whole thing. And people were like, how'd you lose the 12 pounds? I'm like, going to Chipotle. Because they think it's about the McDonald's, the Chipotle, the Taco Bell, like the place is going to make you unhealthy. Okay, obviously there's some nuance there. But showing people like, hey, not being afraid of when you're on a plan, and it's the only thing that's open at a certain time, or you've been with your kids all day and you need to find something, if it's to talk about. Like I had a client lose tons of weight having Subway and Chipotle every day because it was the thing next to her work and next to her kids' soccer practice. And it's like people have to, I don't know, sometimes untangle the concept of unhealthy place like a Taco Bell and still getting healthy results, if that makes sense, right? Like it's I don't know, I feel like
you have to like have your plan before you walk in there, because they're gonna get you with 3 warm cookies for $1 or whatever if you're not.
There you go. Yeah, have your plan before you go in there, and I think that's the smart thing, right, Marcos?
1000%. I mean, nothing changes if nothing changes, right? Like that's like all of them. That's all that's coming to my head is like, I mean, Juliana's like, I'm cutting back 2 days, like having withdrawals from Taco Bell, but like that was your drug of choice. Like, I think, again, like to beat or to win whatever institution that you were frequenting, right? It has like I mean, honestly, like Juliana, like that, like kind of like brought back Johan Hari's book about like, as he's taking, we can talk about this too, like some of the, GLP-1 drugs. And like, he's like, I went to KFC and I ordered my normal meal and bucket, and then I just couldn't finish it. And I always finish this, but that was like an epiphany moment of being like, well, what if I do just start eating less? What does that actually look like? What if I do just cut out a day? What does that look? What if I do swap soda with diet? But it doesn't taste as good, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, again, like, I mean, you got to make some sacrifices. There are going to be some changes in that routine in order to make yourself change. And same thing with me with Taco Bell. So as a kid, and honestly, we were actually talking about this yesterday, Tiffany and I, in the office. She's like, should I be good today or should I go to Taco Bell? And I'm just like, well, I mean, you got to go to Taco Bell, get the caramel apple empanada. And she's like, they don't even make those anymore. I was like, what? I was like, how do they get rid of one of like the best things on the menu? I was like, well, there's no point in going. And she's like, yeah, you're probably right. I probably shouldn't do it. Plus, like, I need to get my workout regime back in order and everything. And I was like, okay, well, you can make it better. You can make the best choice that you think for today. And we, as much as I hyped up Taco Bell, she still didn't go get it, which was the hilarious part of the whole conversation. But it took me back to, I was like telling her, I'm like, the only time I've had Taco Bell was in Washington, D.C., because that was the only thing open. It was like 11 p.m. at night. I'm walking over to the hotel after the flight from Vegas to D.C. for our D.C. office. And I was like, unbeknownst to people, Taco Bell actually has one of the healthiest menus you can pick from on like the Fresca stuff. Like they literally were like a health promoting chain for a while. So I go in there, I was like, let's go see what's on the Fresca menu. I was like, oh man, I can get 2 of these bowls, get like 65 grams of protein, all this stuff. And it was like, again, the chicken. And it was literally just like eating the tortilla, like the normal burritos with sans like the tortilla at the time, And I was like, all right, cool. 800 calories. Also, I learned they have Diet Baja Blast, which was like a blast from the past, but also really was the cherry on top for my whole Taco Bell experience.
Wait, I have a clarification question here. Like, that was your one and only time going to Taco Bell?
No. In my
Oh.
20s. In my 20s though. That was the only time I've been to Taco Bell.
Oh.
Now I'm in my 30s. Like, but when I was a kid, so okay. I mean, if we're talking about stories as a kid, we go to the skate park up the hill in Anthem. We would ride down from the skate park all the way down to the Taco Bell. And there was this gentleman that worked there. He's like, yo, dog, you got to get the cheesy gordita crunch. He's like, the El Chorrito Supreme. That's for real stuff right there. And
Taco Bell was like a daily. It's like, so there's the middle school, and then all my friends wanted to go to the library, which is about 2 blocks away. And the library is where you played your computer games, you know, after school. So like, boom. Yeah, I know, right? And then there was a Wendy's. There's now it's like a, what is it? It's that chicken place.
Chick-fil-A?
No, not no.
Chicken Mexican?
Popeyes.
Mexican. What is it?
Popeyes.
No, that's Cajun.
Mexican grill fast food. I'm forgetting the name.
Baja Fresh?
No, not even Baja Fresh.
Rubio's.
No, not even
Faustos?
Rubio's. Oh, dude, I'm blanking on the name real quick. But anyways, it's like a Wendy's. There was a McDonald's. There's a Carl's Jr. and then a Taco Bell, all within the same block of the library. And then there's like 2 gas stations. So obviously, like, boom. But everything was like, do you guys remember? Everything was like $1. So like, you know, you ask your mom
Kids
for
these
$5.
days won't understand. I know.
Dude,
you
ask
get
your
the
mom for
$5.
Dude, you were a king, bro. You were a king, and you're like, well, okay, if I get 2 tacos, they had like the 2 Taco Tuesday dollars, like, so it's like 2 tacos for $1, right? You get a drink, so that's like $2. But then you're like, well, what am I gonna do with the last $3? Well, I'm gonna go get me like a Hershey's or something like that, dude. Like $5.
Yeah.
Real bad. It could go real bad now. Back in the day.
No, but you know, if I have somebody that comes to me and they're like that addicted to some sort of fast food as possible, I give them a homework assignment that they have to plan going in there and ordering like the healthy thing, the thing that I tell them to, whatever it is. I make them have a trip where that is all that they order so that they know they can.
Yeah, reinforce it. Yeah, that positive.
Right? Because if you leave it up to them, then they're not going to order the healthy thing.
That makes sense.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you
homework.
Yeah, but that's like, again, that's going back to like kind of a pre-planning or pre-logging kind of thing. I had a client start back with me, and he had like, you know, day 1 was yesterday, but it was halfway through the day when we spoke and set his macros and got everything kind of dialed back in, and he had like, you know, a little bit of deviation. He's a little bit over. Today it's like pinpoint perfect. And he's like, he's like, he's like, you know, I told you today I was gonna get it at that level. I was like, I didn't doubt it, but the only way you get there to have 000s on your macro counting is if you literally plan it out, you know, like, there's no other way. Like, as good as all of us are, if we just try to wing it, we're gonna get close and we'll be happy with it, probably plus or minus 50 to 100 calories, right? Because we know the foods that we would try to choose to hit a goal. Yeah. But, you know, that's the difference, is like planning it out, going in and knowing those things exist, you know. For years, I found it funny. I had a buddy that would go to Chick-fil-A, and we've turned this into a fast food episode, so we might as well just talk about like how to actually eat healthy at fast food places. Sorry, guys, which I think is important. Like, you're busy traveling. What can you eat? You know, at all these places.
That's our patient base, right? With Cenegenics is like busy professionals having to travel. I mean, how many sales executives do we have that are on the road driving all the time for their jobs or flying?
Surprisingly, I don't think a lot of people even understand that. A lot of people have some oddity type jobs where they have a business that's thriving, that's like almost recession proof. It's kind of in the middle part of the country where it's very rural. So they may only have an option like that to pick from, you know? So like, how do you make the most educated and informed decision? And again, everybody can benefit from this. So, but I had a buddy that would go and get the grilled chicken sandwich from Chick-fil-A. I was like, I thought they only did fried chicken. This was like 10 years ago when Chick-fil-A first came to Las Vegas, because it wasn't here for a while. And, I was like, the grilled? I was like, really? Like, this is a fried chicken place? And I was like, then I still hadn't had it for like 2 years after that. I still like never went. Then I actually had it for the first time. I was like, okay, I get it. I get the fried chicken. I get the rage with it. Like, the chicken sandwich is good. And then I had the grilled one. I was like, actually, this one is equally as tasty. It's different. You know, it has like a different seasoning. But like, again, I was like, I could have 1 in 1. Like, even from that perspective, it's like, I don't know, 700 calories, tons of protein. And so that would be something I would constantly work in, is that, or I'd get the grilled nuggets on the side, you know, and try to bump up that like protein content to a threshold that would help me feel more full. And lucky for me, I'm not a huge fries guy. And honestly, Chick-fil-A's fries can kick rocks. It is not the waffle fry. please. And I don't actually care about sauces either. Like, so I'm like, I want that flavor to be in the breading and or the actual meat itself. So I think they knock it out of the park. So Chick-fil-A sponsor me.
Right. Have you ever had the charbroiled chicken club at Carl's Jr.?
I've had it once.
No.
It's good.
Carl's Charbroiled Chicken Club.
My mom would get that one.
Lettuce wrap, though. They'll let it for you.
Yeah.
That's like my go-to at Carl's Jr.
Lettuce,
Okay,
no
Juliana,
bun?
this is a good question.
No bun? Come on.
Lettuce wrap.
Yeah. This is a good question. I think to kind of segue into like, I know we're talking about like fast food and stuff like that, but like, how do you live like a Cenegenics longevity lifestyle? I know we're kind of talking about like healthifying your foods on the go, but what's like, I'm curious, like what's your day-to-day look like? What's your training split look like? I asked Brenna like what her training split looked like, and she was like, tell me. I was like, it wasn't for the audience. I wanted to know what you're doing because you're killing it. So like, I want to know like, how is it?
I'm not going to be happy with my answer right now because I am like nursing so many injuries. But then that's also life too, right?
That's life, yeah.
Yeah. So this has been like, so I just posted that picture on our team chat, right, of me on the VO2, and then everybody's like, "Oh, post your
score,
VO2 max number there," and I'm just like, "Oh, I just can't. I'm not." It's a really sad time actually for me, like fitness wise. Yeah. So you can see my little scar from my Peloton. Yeah. I got nerve damage from riding a bike.
Oh,
wait, it was nerve damage from riding the bike?
Yeah, from holding the handlebars. Yeah.
I didn't know that it was from that specifically.
It's a rare thing, but it's common in cycling, I guess.
Yeah.
So what's wild is my husband had the same surgery 3 weeks before me on his left hand, and mine's on the right. And so, and like the doctors are just looking at us like, how, like this is already a really rare surgery that needs to happen. And then for a married couple to get the same thing, we were kind of crazy on our Pelotons. But so when, when the people tell you to have a light grip on the handlebar, you better listen to them. That's like
the probability must have been, you must have been doing so many classes during when Peloton was rising during like lockdown, huh?
Exactly. I mean, I took COVID I remember telling somebody on the phone, I said, everybody right now is like drinking and they're like just living their best lives, quote unquote, where they're eating whatever they want and they're having alcohol during the day because they're working from home. And it was this whole thing. And I said, I don't want to come out of COVID worse off. I want to be like, this is my cocoon and I'm going to emerge as this butterfly. And I was in like the best shape of my life. And I had 2 kids at the time and wasn't pregnant. And just, it was, this is when we were planning that 3rd baby. But I mean, I was lifting. I mean, I could tell you what my split was then. But so what happened was I was having this pain just kind of using my mouse when I thought I was like, oh, it's like tendonitis right here. And then I would do certain moves with the dumbbells and then I was getting pain with that. And eventually I remember I was just in my garage gym here and I went to just do like a shoulder press and I went up to lift and I just had to drop the weight because it was so painful in my hand, my wrist. And I just like burst out into tears because I was like, I can't hold dumbbells anymore. And, and so it took a really long time to figure out what was wrong with me. Actually, I had a hand specialist who also just thought it was tendonitis because I didn't have any numbness or tingling. So he just totally wrote off that it could be nerve.
Is it the Lequivier's syndrome, or what's the actual like diagnosis of this for the bike one?
It is compression of the ulnar nerve at the Guyon's canal. Guyon is spelled
so the UCL all the way down there.
What's that?
So the UCL goes all the way down there because I know the UCL is more common for like baseball and actually like injuries there. Like that's Tommy John when it's higher up.
Yeah, it's Tommy John.
Yeah, and I have some more nerve tests coming up. They're going to do the whole arm and on both sides, but to see. But yeah, so it's been a journey of getting back into carrying dumbbells still. So I haven't really been able to hold a dumbbell for a couple of years, maybe going on 3 years.
Wow.
So I've had to be pretty creative. And so then, of course, I didn't know that I was 40 anymore. And I go, I'm like, you know what? Forget it. I'm not going to be a cyclist anymore. I can do stuff without weights. I'm going to go do hill sprints. Because I used to do a ton of hill sprints. And so I was like, I'm going to do it. And I just go outside. We live on this super steep hill. And I like kind of warmed up. And then I started sprinting. And then like, boom, my hamstring. I'm like, oh yeah, well, okay. So,
Let this be a warning to everyone. Like, you just can't jump into high intensity stuff. Like,
Yes.
even if, especially, here it is, especially if you've been a fit person. Here's why. When you're a
yes,
fit person, you believe you can go back to those.
Yes.
You believe you can go back to those because mentally you can go back to it. But physically, you're not there. So you're like, all right, I'm going to sprint. And then, boom.
you know how to, you feel it. You know in your whole body that you know how to do it. And so you're exactly right. And because I was not a fit person for so many years of my life,
Yeah.
to be forced into not being fit again in this way of like trying to figure out what am I going to do to be fit and just dealing with these injuries on upper body and lower body, right, is very interesting because I'm like, I can't let anything put me back to where I was, right?
Yeah.
So with your question, nutrition becomes that much more important.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is like, it sounds to me like you're at a point, especially remember, we're talking about longevity here.
Mm-hmm.
And Marcos made this point in one of the things, like, life is a split between marathons and sprints, or sprints and
No,
marathons.
life is a marathon of sprints, bro. That's
marathon
my
of
quote.
sprints.
Oh my
Yeah.
God,
I love that.
I liked the way Seamus said it though. Like,
But he butchered it just like my
I
name,
butchered it.
Juliana. Just like I probably
Marco!
butchered your name right there.
But no, what you're saying though is like, and part of this identity of longevity is what we call like long-term athletic development, right? Where like at certain seasons you might have a different thing. So basically for you, let me turn this light on. Basically for you, locking in your nutrition now just seems to be that much more important. Whether your lifestyle would be like, hey, I need to go sleep more, or I need to make sure I'm on my supplementation, like in that Cenegenics lifestyle. But to you, I would kind of give you the same wisdom that I got during COVID. I kind of saw COVID as a time to level up. And I went backwards. I went back 100 steps. A lot of people were like, let's lift heavier. I had a whole like outside garage gym performance unit. You could look back at my Instagram. It's like the sickest gym. I put my like heart and soul into that thing before I moved. But all I did for about 9 months was Ben Patrick's ATG program, which was like backwards walking, Nordics, shoulder external rotation, bands, and literally doing movements every day that were like joint supportive. And it took about 3 months for my knee pain, which was about 20 years of knee pain from like wrestling, jiu-jitsu and stuff, to go away because I wasn't doing jiu-jitsu anymore. So I was like, okay, well, there's no input. People call it like how we do a elimination diet. It was like an elimination movement elimination.
I love that.
There was no movements that can hurt me. So I did all the movements that were fixing my body, all my joints, all my shoulder stuff, all my neck stuff, all these things. It took about 9 months of like, wow, I can be fixable. So I think you're probably somewhere there, Juliana, where you're doing all the reverse work that you need to do. And then when you get back into the training, maybe it's 6 months from now, 9 months, a year from now, the foundation's there. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's patience. Longevity is a patience game because it's like, what's 1 year out of the next 40 to 50 years of training that you have where you're like, well, let me fix this foundation. Let me go back 100 steps. I know it sucks, but now I'm gonna do each step up. I'm gonna have it correct. I'm gonna lay down the concrete and bricks correctly as a foundation instead of just kind of skipping through it,
Yeah, well, and I'm a religious person as well, and so I'm trying to be like, there's a reason that this hit me to slow me down, and I honestly think that could be it. Because if I was just going, I mean, I didn't really have a flexibility routine. I didn't have any routines where I was protecting my joints. I was just going. I was like, I'm just going to be strong. I just want to build muscle, right. Like, and I was not doing the things that I was supposed to be doing, right? I wasn't doing the things that I preach to people as well. And so this just like totally, I hit a wall, and I was supposed to be like, okay, what am I supposed to do now? So you're exactly right as to where I am. It's a little bit, I would say, like, if I could use the word embarrassing, but I shouldn't. But that is a normal feeling that I have with it. But it is making me a better coach again, right? All of these things that we get hit with in life make us better coaches, because most
100%.
of everybody that comes in also is dealing with an injury or had a surgery. They've had to start over. Maybe they were squatting 200 pounds and they were so happy and they just want to get right back to 200 and they're going to start at like 150. No, like, and that's that ego thing, right? It's like I've had to check my ego, because every time I don't, I get hurt again. But I have like exciting maybe plans. I'm very goal oriented, so I have to have something. Like when I did bodybuilding competitions, like that was the only time that I actually stuck to a plan.
Yeah.
If it was just to lose weight, I'm not gonna. It's like I don't really care.
That makes sense.
Sometimes you have to find the thing that you care about, right?
100%.
So that's what I'm looking for right now, is that thing that I'm going to care about that isn't like wild, that I'm not going to get hurt at. So yeah, sorry, I can things that are on the fridge.
No, I think it's great to point those things out though, and how to persevere through it. And I mean, maybe even how Seamus just talked about something like it inspired you to get back to some, prehabilitation stuff, right? Where you're like, I'm going to get to here, so I'm going to regress and do these movements like that. And it's, I mean, everyone's plan changes, practically. I mean, especially like injury mediated stuff. Like, I know going into last year, trying to get ready for this competition that we're doing again this year, and we did it the year before that and the year before that. It's kind of nice to do the competition with my wife. It gets me focused. I actually like change my training like intentionally once the workouts are released to like be like, okay, I haven't been doing that. I'm going to incorporate this now. Things have to, again, like something gets brought in, other things got to move out. So it's not just this, pure hypertrophy, stretch mediated type of training for a while. And it's, it's important, I think. Plus it gives us like our bonding time. But I actually asked the question today. I was like, what do I need to do to actually run like the fastest 1,000 meters I've ever done? In addition to also keep the strength up there. And had a conversation with somebody, and he's like, well, I've done a couple things here, and this is your goal. Obviously you have to then go do something afterwards. You got to start with like just getting on the track. It's like, just do it once a week. I was like, really? You can get a benefit on this with once a week with running training?
Dude, once a week on the track is great, bro.
But it kind of blew my mind. I was like, I would have probably tried to go 2 or 3. I think I was not getting enough out of it. But, he talked about these ideas of negative splits and all that stuff. And I think that's the biggest thing here is like, as Seamus is saying, these things change, but then we become more open to listening to how to like get the benefit and extracting like the goal out of it. Like you just said, I was like, man, like that'll be great. Cause if I can learn how to like run good for me, in an 8-week cycle, and all it took me was 1 day a week, sign me up, because then I will continue to not do it until 8 weeks out.
Do it like minimum effective dose. I love this. The program I follow is from Chris Henshaw, Aerobic Conditioning. Shout out to him. He did the programming for Rich Froning, and he's done a bunch of like top tier CrossFitters, but he has this like minimum effective dose of running. Dude, I only run 2 times per week. One of them is an LSD run, a long, slow distance, and then one's a track day interval work. There could be a third day in there, but I don't want to say getting away with 2, but minimum effective dose of 2, and still progressing every week on times. And I think sometimes when you look at a plan, right, like Juliana's talking about like finding a purpose, doing a goal, sometimes as coaches, we find like, I'm going to lay out the plan, and like it has to hit every single note, when you realize maybe it just needs to hit this one, and this will crumble all the other dominoes if I just do that, and then everything else will kind of fall into place. So like, dude, I definitely recommend just get on the track once a week. I think you'll love it, bro.
Oh, I know. Well, and yes, I mean, obviously I'm going to do it because it's there. In my head, I'm like, usually the run that starts the day off is also its own event. So like, maybe they're probably going to changes to the scoring, and then it's going to be snuck in there. but again, like it's stuff like that, and understanding how, again, like I'm kind of like you, Juliana. I like injured a hamstring during COVID, so like 4 years ago, and it still kind of bothers me because it was like, it's like right in the meat. It's like right in the like that's like that meaty part of like the hamstring. It's not like proximal or distal. It's like right in the middle, and I'm like, it still bothers me 4 years later. I have to train around this thing that's always there, uncomfortable. It just feels like there's a ball kind of there because like, same thing with my knee. Like everybody has like these little aches and pains, and like kind of what Seamus had mentioned about like really like kind of bulletproofing areas. That's actually what the training split in getting prepared for this thing. I'm like, I know what to do a CrossFit competition, done it for over a decade, so it'll be fun. But I also want to go into it injury free because last year in preparation for it, there was a little tweak in the knee. I was like, that doesn't feel good. Then there was like an adductor hamstring thing on that same right side. I'm like, I go to my PT buddy and I was like, I need you to fix me because I'm supposed to be getting ready for this competition in like 6 weeks. And that also like, goes to show you too, like, again, you can try to be as, because I'd already injured the hamstring before. I always, if I feel something, I just like, there's always tomorrow. Like, again, I'm trying to do this for the longevity thing. If I feel something that does not feel right, like there's no reason to push. Yet we still get a little bit of that injury from time to time.
Yeah.
And training through that and persevering, again, like you're like, I literally, I don't know, like I don't even know how I would feel to not be able to grip a dumbbell like you're describing here for as long as you have. I would have been looking for like some sort of like invention that lets me like hold on to things to do like.
Well, they're there. I mean, there are people that are born without a limb or they lose a limb and they still will weightlift, and and I don't want to have any excuses in that way because there are ways to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm just still trying to figure out what the heck my injury is.
Wait, Juliana, have you tried like, it's called like a hook grip? Like you put around your wrist.
I can't have anything. I can't even take my blood pressure in my arm. You
can't have anything on you. Oh, okay.
I know, that's my issue right now.
You know what?
I can do some machines I can do. I put a big towel there. Like, I'm getting back into it. Yeah.
When I broke my finger, I had this hook grip thing that I just hooked onto everything and dumbbells and stuff like that. And it was just perfect because I couldn't make a grip for like about 6 weeks, and it was just it held everything. I was doing pull-ups, I was doing like all this stuff. It was cool. But yeah, I want to see what you figure out, because I feel like as a coach, like a Cinegenics coach primarily, like to talk about, hey, we got to do some HIIT training, or hey, you got to have resistance training. As we're finding out so much about muscle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
I was on the Peloton before today, and they told me that I can't ride the bike anymore.
Well,
they're only saying that
you just can't put your arms on it, you know?
No, actually my doctor said that to me. He brand name aside, right? He was just like, you can't ride a bike anymore. And but yeah, I put like a huge pillow there, and I don't really hold on. So my output's a lot lower, but my heart rates are the same.
You know what it is? I talked to this with someone, or someone said this about like doctors and prescription of exercises. I think the reason doctors just completely go to no exercise is just a liability thing, because they don't understand that if a doctor told you to do something and you are dealing with like a neurological issue or exercise, and they did say something like that, it's on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they have to say no completely.
Right. And I can do what I want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
I do feel like it's my body and I'm smarter about it, and
again, in everything that we've done and dealing with people, I mean, this is a common case of when we're coaching our patients, and of course we're going to try to health coach them. We're not trying to be like our way or the highway, right? Like, we know these basic core fundamental principles of things, and we want to try to do them safely, but also meeting people where they're at as well. And again, like for someone to be like, I've done exercise for 10 plus years in this capacity, this thing is kind of a fluke, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to find a solution to not putting pressure in these areas, and have and if you're going through the ride pain-free and all, for all intents and purposes, I'd have to imagine that you're not going to be doing any harm. As soon as you start, and I've even heard some research that like you actually should probably go through some pain at times to help like restore some of the muscle function and ability. Like for like you have a bad back, you have to kind of get through that spot where there is the tightness and pain. So it's like next thing you know, in 10 years from now, they're going to say, oh yeah, the best way to heal your back pain is actually to go into the place where it kind of hurts and like do some,
exposure
stretch
therapy.
mediated
That's
stuff.
what they say about pain. Pain is so weird. Every time I bring this up, people open up people's backs, nothing wrong with them, but they're 10 out of 10 on pain. Someone else gets their back opened up, all the back is messed up. I don't feel any pain. So it's kind of like this weird thing where pain could be this like psychosomatic thing where you got to just expose it too, right? And obviously we're dealing with the neurological thing, Juliana. I think it's way more nuanced, but we don't know.
Well, I don't know. Like I'm with you on that. It's just the power of the mind, and
this is why I tell my clients online who are like, Seamus, I hurt like my one knee. I'm like, train the other knee. Because there's a crossover effect. About 16% of it to go to the other side. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, it'll your body likes symmetry. It'll figure it out. Like,
well, and there's a lot of people that just hurt like one finger and then they're done with everything.
They just want to find an excuse, you know, find a way out.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, nothing replaces the hard work, figuring out the solution to the thing. Again, as soon as you figure out what it is, you're going to be like 1,000 times lighter. But also too, it's like, you want to probably be training for the next 30 plus years of your life. So it's like, again, you can't be, if it's taking away from you doing anything else that's like basic fundamental things for your family, of course you shouldn't do that either. Because I know that, one of my training partners right now he calls it mom arm, but he said, saying it jokingly, because new moms, as they're holding the baby, like supporting the head, their wrist gets jacked up. And he's like, I have dad arm. He's like, I got dad.
He actually has like the decorvain tendonitis in his thumb. Or no?
Just his wrist. He's like, I don't know what's wrong with my wrist. And I was like, it's probably from holding your kid.
He has decorvain. That's what he has.
Decorvain? Yeah, well, I think it's what he looked up and he finally diagnosed himself or whatever, But he's just like, I can't do curls because it hurts like my wrist. And I'm like, babies, man.
I'm looking forward to it, Marcos. Juliana, we're kind of over an hour. I want to be respectful of your time. I really appreciate you really coming on this conversation. I really wanted to highlight you and really appreciate for our Cenegenics guest series. But I know we kind of had a winding conversation.
It was so fun.
I feel like we need to do more of these.
We need to do part 2, and you can kind of dive into the story of like what got you to where you're at, and also how, like, again, what you're dealing with now, how that's probably playing a role in how you're going to overcome it. And it's probably leans heavily on nutrition, like you've mentioned, because obviously I didn't even know that there was a backstory to like, actually, you know what? I shouldn't say that. I feel like every one of us coaches has some level of weight issue that we dealt with in our younger years. The severity of it obviously is much different, because I know when we had Josh on before we did the guest series, he talked about being like in fat camp, and like he's like literally, what movie was it?
It's that Disney movie from Ben Stiller, Hard Not, something like that. It's like, but yeah, you're right. Like weight issue, whether it's like underweight, or overweight, or like a body
under or over
issue.
And so I think
because I have a lot of epiphany moments that happen to me that I feel like can help other people. So anytime.
and honestly, I think we could just even bring it back on just as a second episode, not even like Cinegenics series. So that way it's just like us kind of going into that and understanding what that looks like. Because, those moments of like openness and hearing that again could motivate somebody to, like you said, go from 7 days to 5 days to 3 days to removing it from the existence. And I think that is, again, like you asked that question jokingly about you really haven't had Taco Bell. And I was like, well, I haven't had a lot of things for so long. I mean, we have a little bit more of it because I don't want to not let my kids have exposure to it. Because like, if I tell them this thing is bad and don't explain why, it's just, we'll just never go there, it's not our thing, then I'm worried about what would happen in the future. Like I am really, societal norms or whatever. Or maybe it's like they're at school and then so-and-so brings it as like a thing, and my kid's like the outcast in the corner because he's like, I don't eat that stuff. And it like feels like he's not, like he gets the social exclusion. And we know that social health and the mental health of everything related of it, super important after COVID times. So I'm definitely more so worried about that. I'm like, I can hopefully fix anything that's going on with, I cannot fix it, but I can help with like the understanding and education of the food stuff and why this is important, why we eat these things, why we have to like, again, not do certain things. Actually, today we went to the It's Sugar store and we got some like limited little candies and had a little fun and got like a gumball out of a gumball machine. Like, cool. Like, but again, like it's not, I'm not, you know, then my son asked me like, this food has no fat. And was like, so it's like, is this going to make me fat? And I was like, well, too many calories makes you fat. Right? Everything in moderation. And, you know, we're starting to explain this and I've done that. Like, so, I mean, we're going to keep talking about these things and it's just not going to be, it's going to be nuanced because it is. And again, I want him to be able to, you know, grow appropriately and do that. And that's where I think other people hearing that story, and we can share more of our stories again, maybe ones that we haven't shared in the past, Seamus, and it'll be...
You're going to find out a lot about me.
I know. Hey, shoot, man. I mean, yeah. So with that being said, Juliana, thank you so much. I mean, again, it went by super fast.
It was fast.
It's so fun.
Again,
thank you.
And we really didn't even scrape the surface. Like, I took a look at your photography stuff. Why are you not doing my headshots? Is the question. I'd have to try to find.
I told Cenegenics I'd fly to every center and take everybody's headshot.
Oh my God! Like, I mean,
But then,
having
you know,
that eye. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, or again, we just do a company retreat.
Performance
hey guys,
health retreat
knock,
in Vegas.
everybody at top. Let's do it. Because. Yeah, well, I mean, again, I feel like everybody else has like a multitude of other skill sets that they are working on outside of this and have a passion thing. Like we have like our fitness versions of self, but then we also have like those other hobbies things. So like the photography is super cool. You know, the jewelry business, that's super cool. Obviously, like having the kids books, super cool. Again, we didn't even mention that. Go support Juliana's. Your books are on Amazon, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So super easy reads. We actually... like we had a moment earlier where one of our other coaches like literally was we were in a call, pulled it out. I was like, I read this book like 3 times a week with my daughter. Like, and you know, it was just like,
surprise. I felt very supported and loved. It was awesome.
I know. And like we said, Mark, when's Mark coming on, Seamus? We haven't even bothered him yet.
You hit him up. You know, he's good for it.
I know he's good for it. But yeah, like again, we want to be able to continue to highlight and showcase the diverse array of people that we have here, because we all truly have different things that, again, can help connect with people at a personal level. And that's really what Cenegenics is all about, is like you're not a number, right? It's not like going to like a college campus where you are a number, you know, in this auditorium of 150 plus people, right? You are getting this individualized attention where, you know, literally a day is devoted to you. And I don't think when a lot of people come in for that first time experience, they don't like, why isn't there more people here? It's like, do you want more people here? Like, we want to make it really, we want it to be intimate and you getting undivided.
There's no other way to do it.
You know,
there's no other way to do it. And, but yeah, honestly, Juliana, such a surprise, because I felt like when I looked at my calendar today, I've been up since like 4:30. I got to go until 9 because I got like a baptism class, and I'm like, man, today's like a long day, but this conversation, like, just flow, loving it. I think we definitely need to keep it going, and it highlights, like, with this Cenegenics series, like, we are real people. Like, I feel like the healthcare system gets a bad rap, and I just kind of want to highlight like Cenegenics within that rough as a diamond, because we really are people-based and patient-based and outcome-based. And it's like, we work with the best of the best, but also at the same time, we have the best of the best, and they've gone through and they do it. And I think you're like a perfect example of that. And we'll do it again. But I want to close out just for time's sakes. Guys, thanks so much for the Macro Perspective Pod. I think you guys are going to love this episode. Comment below and make sure to share this episode and support Juliana wherever she's at. Juliana, before that goes, can you tell people where to find your site, where they can find you and how they can support you? And then we'll wrap it there.
Yeah, my photography business is my name, JulianaJasonPhotography.com. And then my jewelry business, supporting your journey to motherhood, is Embyrforever.com. And it's spelled EMBYR. Embyr.
EMBYR.
If you look me up, it's Juliana Jason on Amazon for my children's books. Jason is my maiden name, but I use that for all of my businesses because it's just catchier. It's like
JJ, you like the alliteration?
Exactly.
I love it.
Exactly.
Plus, it
But
plus
I
it
do
keeps
still
it.
have julianajason.com. I don't really use it, but it has my before and after photo on there that you can see when I was at my heaviest and then when I was on stage for my bodybuilding competition.
There you go.
So
Ooh, we might need to save that for part 2, but part 2 will be coming out soon. And again, thank you for your time. Until next time, Micro Perspective peeps, we bid you adieu. Goodbye.